Good morning, Alamance Church. It's your pastor, Jess. This is Tea with Jess. I'm not drinking tea this morning. I'm drinking coffee because we're shooting in the morning instead of the afternoon. And this is my friend Aida. She's drinking Topo Chico, which is a delightful, bubbly water beverage. It's delicious. I'll let her tell you about it. But anyway, Aida, I'm so glad you're here. Aida is a friend from seminary. It's so nice to see her face this morning. And I'll let you, Aida, tell us about your current call. What are you doing now? Where are you? What's going on?
Hi, thanks, Jess, for the introduction. My name is Aida. I enjoy the occasional fizzy water, and Topo Chico and tea both start with a T, so I figured Jess would let this one slide. I'm currently in Indianapolis, Indiana, in medical school. I'm supposed to be in hospitals right now, but because of COVID-19, our clerkships have been delayed a few months, so it's been a lot of online schooling, and so I went to medical school after seminary. Jess and I were classmates at seminary, and this is where I am at this point.
I'm fascinated by you, and I wanted to talk to Aida today specifically because Aida's a doctor, right? She went to seminary, this institution that costs money, that, is a 3-year commitment. And then she went to medical school. And so I'm just always intrigued by people. And you kind of you knew that, right? Kind of coming in yeah. So tell me about that. When did you know you wanted to be a doctor?
So it's a muddier story. Basically since I was a kid, neither of my parents is from the US. My mom is from Colombia, my dad is from Lebanon. On my dad's side, we have a long line of doctors. And kind of growing up, it was kind of the idea, the most stable income, the most stable job market, parents that aren't from the US and that want their kids to have a good life. We're just and it's what we knew as a family. And they were like, okay, so you guys, all 3 kids are going to be doctors. And we all were excited at that idea, right? And then you kind of grow up and you realize oh, maybe I'm doing all of this for my parents. And I love my parents. They're wonderful people. But that's not really how you live life, right? If you live life for someone else, it's not sustainable. So we get to college. I'm still on that pre-med track. I'm trying to figure out creative ways to be me while also still pursuing medicine. I start with that, classic biology major, and I realize I don't like memorizing things. And biology majors were big memorizers and very good at memorizing. All my friends got way better grades than me. And I was like, all right, well, so let's pivot again. What is something I enjoy? And I was like, well, I enjoy being outside, and I actually really enjoyed math and critically thinking. So I started looking into this program, this environmental science degree at IU. So I went from IU to Princeton Seminary, back to IU for med school. And I thought, I get to take upper level math. I get to be outside. At that point, I was a backpacking and rock climbing guide at my school. So it all just felt like it kind of meshed a little more, and it felt more like me. So I could still fulfill that parent or that dream for my parents and for me and be me while doing it. But then the further I got into college, I started realizing that I was like, oh no, it's still not working. I'm doing things to be me and to do this, and I still don't feel at total peace with this decision. So senior year of college, I finally find a college ministry that suits me. It was actually UKirk. It's a Presbyterian ministry. I grew up Presbyterian. Yes.
Thanks for that shout out.
So it was actually UKirk that Reverend Mihi Kimcourt at UKirk in Bloomington. I meet her senior year. And before then, it was you were either in the super evangelical, meet a quota every month to get people to Jesus at IU, at a big state school.
Yep.
Or you're in the spaghetti monster club where it's ha ha ha, God is dumb. Who would do, and I obviously don't sit in either camp.
Yeah.
So UKirk was this nice middle for me.
What can you tell? I have not heard spaghetti monster before, and I'm super intrigued. And I kind of heard you say that as like almost like atheist and like kind of anti-religion. Is that what that means? Or like what does that mean?
I'm not totally sure. My impression was like, I'm definitely for atheist humanism. Like, I'm down, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the Spaghetti Monster Club was like, haha, let's just make fun of everyone that believes in something in the sky. Like, that's
Okay.
that was my impression.
Okay.
Slash, I just didn't, like, I believe in something in the sky, right? Well,
Yeah.
and among us and within us and throughout. And like, I'm definitely, we can talk about panentheism another time. But the point is,
that's fine. I just wanted a definition for like what that meant. So that helps. So thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, didn't vibe with either of those ends of the spectrum. Wasn't really that outgoing. I was more of a silly person, and I definitely saw God as a personal thing back then. I was in a group of friends that was very like interfaith. You know, I have like Hindu friends, Muslim, you know, agnostic, Sikh. So just I was kind of in college, and this is its own narrative, right? But like I was like, I think the best way to be a Christian is to be quiet, because I don't want to perpetuate, you know, like that, like God is the only way mentality. And this is coming from an Arab Christian who, like, my family was not directly affected by the Crusades because we were like kind of Jerusalem Christians. We were Orthodox. But yeah, I'm very aware with what the term like crew, like the Crusaders, like
Yeah, that's
it's
damaging language if you
Yeah.
have a different perspective than the victor, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
So I think I was very aware of that. I didn't have language for it. So my approach to Christianity was to just be quiet. And also my approach to my life was to appease. And I find you, Kirk, and I'm given leadership roles by someone who like believes similar things to me, who doesn't like, who follows a God that doesn't require, you know, converting others, like a God that just lets people be who they are, you know. And yeah, so then I'm there, and I'm working a couple of jobs in college, and you have to take the MCAT to get to medical school. And I just I was at that point I was like, I am tired, busy, confused. I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, I think I need a pause.
Yeah.
And that might look like ministry for a while and then pursue medicine, or it might just be an indefinite pause. So just like stop pursuing medicine. So I was processing all of this with me at the time, and she was like, have you ever thought of seminary? And I thought,
isn't that the worst question? Whenever somebody says it, you're like, nope, no, not going to talk about it anymore. And then it's like, but this is a thing. Like
yeah. I had that like, you know, and she was like, try it. She was like, try it, you know, get like hooked up with the committee on ministry or something, like pursue inquiry, which is like the first stage of ordination. See if you like it. So I did it. I kind of went for it, and I was like, well, let's try this new path. My parents were kind of like, they're always going to support me, but they were just like, you're supposed to be a doctor. Like, you know, you've been saying you want to be a doctor this whole time. And I'm like, what? Maybe like, but you know, you're 22 years old. I don't know what I want, you know? So that's kind of like how the Holy Spirit works, right? You know, clarity and retrospect and providence. You know, we have, I believe in a providential God. I believe that, you know, what happens, like, the problem of evil is obviously a separate conversation, but I believe that, you know, there is a path for all of us, and the path is best seen in retrospect.
Yep. So you feel this call, dare I call it a call, a Pentecostal fire, right? Something to move you towards going to seminary. Oh! and so you go to seminary, and then like you emerge from seminary, you decide you want to pursue being a doctor. Like, Why? What happened there?
The first year was hard because I didn't know how to do that. You know, I was struggling a lot. I had been trained to take tests and to see 3 choices and pick one, you know. And I was very resistant to this idea that I had to explain myself to people. So that first summer, I stick around campus for Hebrew, still pretty lost. That was actually the summer that things got really bad in Gaza, 2014. And a generation before my Lebanese side, my dad's side is Palestinian refugees. A mix of Palestinian and Ottoman refugees. So I'm sitting in a classroom learning Hebrew. Gaza's getting bombed. For the first time in my entire life, people actually like care about Palestine and want to take a stance. Yeah, so that was definitely a formative moment where I realized I had to learn how to be the vessel of an opinion, because I'm a lot of times the only person in the room that can speak to these things. And I realized how much I looked like a Palestinian that summer. That's also the summer like I deleted Facebook. So like I remember that was the first summer where I was like, I can't see people look like me getting hurt all the time.
Wow. That really speaks to that moment too, Aida. Aside from like COVID, like that's a real thing. And I don't think we hear that perspective as much as we should.
Okay, so that's when I started realizing, like maybe there's something to this like Christian Arab narrative that I can bring to the table. And that was a big part of me wanting to learn how to be that vessel of an opinion. Towards the end of second year, I get this opportunity to go to Beirut and live with my grandparents and study Arabic at the American University of Beirut. So summer 2014, Gaza happens. Summer 2015, I get to be in Beirut with my family learning Arabic. And that just felt like such a gift. I didn't know this then, but that was going to be like, sorry.
You're allowed to be a mom.
That was going to be my last summer with my grandfather. He died a couple months after I came back to seminary that year. And he was actually the first neurosurgeon in the Middle East. So, he was just a big deal to me.
Well, and it sounds like the Middle East, if he's the first neurosurgeon, Aida, geez.
And he was someone who stuck around during the Lebanese Civil War when all the other doctors left. And, he was like 65 years old doing, a couple days worth of craniotomies to remove, bullets from people's heads at 65. My dad is younger than that.
Yeah.
I think my dad's in his 50s still. He's definitely in his 50s. And he's slowing down. Like, he's also a neurosurgeon, and he has he just wants to do like the nicer surgeries now because you earn that, right? And here's my grandpa in his 60s with 7 kids in a war zone, still taking care of people that everyone else has given up on. So we have to go back again. So in my second year of seminary, I had this really cool opportunity with Kingston United Methodist Church. I was an intern. And at seminary, Jess knows this, we're required to do one church placement. You have to. And they make this huge thing about it. Like, you have to do a church placement because you just don't know. And so I did my church placement, and I really enjoyed it there. And I realized that maybe I'm called to smaller groups or to one-on-one. And at that point, I was in the height of my philosophical pursuits. And I was like, I don't know if philosophy means that much to me without science. So these are two things that are playing out in the background when all this happens. And so for that third year, after I get back from Lebanon, even when I was applying to the Arabic program, I decided, maybe this kind of pastoral ministry isn't for me. And I want to work on a farm. I just want to do something for me. At this point, I was really just doing something for me. So I'm back in Princeton. The beautiful summer had just happened. My grandpa's health started going down during that summer. I was so mad. I was mad at God. I was kind of mad at myself because my grandpa like kind of had to see me be like lost before he died. And so I don't know. I think thinking about him and what he did for others, even as a neurosurgeon, someone with a lot of power, they say like it doesn't take a rocket scientist, or they say it doesn't take a brain surgeon. And like this was a brain surgeon who was willing to just sit in the crap with people. And I think that's when I got found, that's when I was like, I want to seriously pursue something. I'm done whittling things down, and figuring out what I don't want. I want to know, like, I think the onus is on us to figure out what we want at the end of the day, if we have the resources, and I have those resources. So yeah, that's when I got in contact with Dr. Graham, my philosophy professor. I was like, I want to do a thesis that will begin my like reintroduction to medicine, medicine as an outsider. I don't really fit into medicine still.
What does that mean? Tell me more.
I was telling you, like, I didn't get the grades that my friends got. I couldn't sit down and memorize the way my friends did. Now I get the grades. No kidding. I honestly, it was a mix. It was a mix of just like not willing to focus because I don't think I knew I wanted it for me.
Yeah.
But back then I was like, well, maybe I just don't have like the same brain that doctors have. Maybe doctors are supposed to be like this. I've always been like this.
Yeah.
Or just take them off. But so yeah, I was gonna do medicine my way, and I think, strangely enough, a few weeks after that, I was invited to a retreat for racial and ethnic minorities for the PCUSA about ministry in this beautiful island, St. Simon's Island in Georgia.
Yeah, I am familiar.
Yeah, and so that happened. I got angry. I got like refocused, but I still had this retreat I was supposed to go to. So for ministers, and so I go there, and I'm the youngest by like 8 years minimum. Everyone else is second career, third career. A lot of them are new immigrants. And I remember this solidified it all for me. I remember they were saying, we got in small group, and I was quiet that weekend because what am I going to tell a 50-year-old who's seen life and is now brave enough to start a new career? I have no advice. I have nothing. And I just sat there quietly that weekend, and everyone kind of loved me. I was kind of like everyone's little baby. And I remember all these ministers saying, I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in. I resisted the call. I didn't fit in. I was told I didn't fit in by leadership. Signs were telling me this isn't for you. And then I realized this is for me, and I do fit in. And I was listening to the only voices I had access to, even though there was a larger voice inside of me saying, screw them, ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bigger call for you. And I was like, oh, I think that's me in medicine.
Yeah, everything about your story right now, Aida, I thought this was going to be a conversation about medicine, and it's not. This is a conversation that's been about call, right? And like what you're and it's valuable for that reason too, because I feel like we've had this conversation so many times about like how, right, like this very narrow-minded idea that if you're called to ministry, then you're called. If you're called to anything else, it's not actually a call. Right. And I think that's so narrow. And I love the language. Again, it's so interesting to hear you say things like, I just, like this wasn't where I fit in, and like I didn't know how to express myself in language. And maybe those are things that you've learned since, this period before I knew you. But like listening to you say I got found is like, we use saved language so much, and you're not using the term saved, you're using the term found. And that implies a very different relationship with the creator than one that's salvific, right? Because how can you be saved if you're not first found, right? Like how can you accept this relationship if someone doesn't condescend to you, right? Like that word condescension is used so inappropriately in American language because it's always used negatively, but it actually alludes to, right, God coming down to be with humans, to meet us where we are. And so sorry, Lewis has lots of thoughts and feelings as well. He's down on the floor putting in his input. But I just think that's so wonderful that like through pursuing God, right, in this very sort of traditional way, like going to seminary, you found a call that wasn't to being a pastor in a church, but is still a very real and authentic call. I'm so grateful you're pursuing it,
A lot of people have said that. Not everything you just said, but grateful that they're grateful I'm pursuing this. They're grateful there's someone that's going to have an MDiv after their MD on their white coat.
Yeah. The other reason I wanted to interview you is because my father's cardiologist, my dad had his first heart attack at 40, and my father's cardiologist happened to have an MDiv, right?
I love it.
Right. And both my parents have MDivs. Well, my mom has an MACE, right? But both of my parents went to Princeton Theological Seminary as well. And so my dad was able to have conversations with his heart doctor about issues beyond the physical heart in a very real way. And he, right, my dad's cardiologist lives in Lawrenceville. He was one of the people who went with, we had a group from our church go to Greece and Turkey to do like this Footsteps of Paul trip right before I started this call, and he came with us. And so I finally got to know my dad's cardiologist, who's right. And it was just like, this is what a gift, right? And I remember when I was discerning my call to go to seminary, because somebody said, have you thought about seminary? And I said, no, like, that's like, I don't want to be a pastor. I didn't think I wanted to be a pastor. And I called my friend Brandon Wirtz, who was the site coordinator in Tucson Borderlands at the Young Adult Volunteer Program there for years and years. I said, Brandon, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, Jess, what if you go to seminary and then you become a plumber? Or what if you go to seminary and then you become an electrician or a politician or a teacher? Don't you think that'll make you better at any of those professions? Like, can you imagine what the world would look like if more people went to seminary before they started their jobs? Like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to seminary, like it was just, because it was, nobody had ever framed it that way as like, this is foundational for your personhood. And your personhood, right? I'm an opinion and a body, right? Is that how you phrase that, right?
Yes.
Right? As an embodied opinion, all of the training that I've had, whether it's for my job or for my like higher calling as a Christian, is going to influence how I exist in that body, So anyway, how are you using what you learned at seminary?
So a lot of times, some people will say like, oh, your bedside manner is going to be so good. And I'm just like, I didn't invest 3 years of my life, into seminary for a good like to be a decent conversationalist and to speak to like my lay patient like a decent human being. Like, I think that's an assumption. The fact that is like somehow the exception in medicine is mind-boggling, because we're going to talk to people.
Yep.
And we have to be good at it. And that is not an expectation in our training or in admission to medical school. I think that's very messed up, and that needs to change. I do think, though, my MDiv, like, it taught me how to be a leader it grew me up,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I learned how to critically think. I learned how to be a vessel of an opinion. I like got this really cool eco-theology network out of it, and friendship, just friendship, and seeing how my like seminarian, you know, colleagues use their degrees in ways inside and outside of pastoral ministry. We are trained to be the most hopeful people in the room, and not in a naive way.
What's bringing you joy and what's bringing you hope, like right now in this moment, as you haven't, right? Like all of your plans have been derailed. You haven't been able to like do the training that you're supposed to do. You were telling me before we started this conversation, right? Like your board exams have gotten all discombobulated, right? Like, so what's bringing you joy and hope? What's making you get up in the morning, Aida?
So this last week, I was actually invited to help coordinate White Coats for Black Lives demonstration on the student end of things. And I kind of use that opportunity to really lift up our students of color and the leadership that's already been there. That was very hopeful. I've been writing a lot. A lot of folks, a lot of like white and like other POC allies have been kind of texting me and trying to figure out how. So our medical school is 9 campuses in the state. We're the biggest medical school in the nation. And we don't represent the medical school. We represent our cities as medical students. And they've been reaching out to me asking for advice and connections on how to stage their own protests. So, I mean, very cool that something a few resident physicians dreamed up and I got invited to help with is becoming a statewide movement for healthcare providers.
That's awesome.
And without the training I got in seminary, I don't know if I would have been receptive enough to be like, you know, we need our POC, like people of color, student leaders to be the speakers. It should not be me. If they didn't have the energy, I would totally understand. And that's how I phrased it. If you are tired, I will do this. If you want this, you know, like place in this moment in time to express like that racism is a public health crisis, you know, it is yours.
Yeah.
So
I'm interested in that too, because I feel like you just sort of set up a binary there where you were like, I want the POC students to do this, POC meaning people of color. Do you not see yourself as a person of color?
I think
it's interesting, right? Because it's a question of like ethnicity and identity. And I think that's a hard line for a lot of people to walk. And right, it's not one that I've had to walk. So forgive my genuine curiosity. But yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good question. I think right now I'm a POC ally, I would say. But you know, this anti-racism work we're doing is really we're fighting, it's anti-blackness. This is about capital B Black people's existence in the United States. And I will never know how that feels like, and that's kind of where I'm a POC ally. And the student leadership that have been of color on my campus are predominantly Black. So so that's kind of where that line. Does that make sense? And their established leadership and their established, like, who am I? I've been kind of, you know, I'm an older student. I'm more or less invisible. I don't go, you know, I'm not in the same social gatherings that everyone else is. So they're also established leadership, which I was also looking to.
So any more kind of truth nuggets you want to share for us before we kind of leave and stop recording, move on with our days?
Black Lives Matter, and to put a population that is disproportionately affected by COVID-19 on the streets fighting for their own lives in other arenas of life in the US is a particular level of evil.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Aida. I'm so glad I got to talk to you today. And you may think you're invisible, but I see you. And I see you doing an inordinate amount of work, and it's really important work. And, we didn't even touch on some of the conversations we've had about like health and land health and all of those things that I know you're interested in, that I'm also interested in. And I just look so forward to continuing to collaborate with you about various and sundry things.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you for being